Melissa Wick here. Today we're going to talk about contracts, one of my favorite topics, super fun. I know you all can't wait to hear about this, but for me, I was a teaching assistant in contracts in law school. So it is something I really actually like a lot. And honestly, in my practice, I wind up with a lot of people coming to me with really terrible contracts. Thank you, LegalZoom, or no contract at all. And they're trying to enforce a verbal agreement, also not a good position to be in. So today I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about contracts and what you want to look for when you're making a deal with somebody. So this post is really about the three moving parts of a contract. And so I hope that you'll never come to me saying, when I said this, I didn't think I was entering into a contract, or when I said this, I didn't mean that, and that's what they understood, or when I was emailing about this particular situation, I thought we were just having discussions. I didn't think I was binding myself into a legal contract. So those are the kinds of situations I get, and I'm going to try to tell you how to avoid them. So first, I'll talk to you a little bit about what is a contract. So I went to the Ohio Revised Code, and the definition is literally it's an agreement between two parties to do something. So that's what it gives you. So no wonder people are confused. So really a contract that's what the Ohio Revised Code says. It's an agreement between two people to do something, enter into a transaction. So going further though, because that's not very helpful, a contract needs to have three parts. An offer, obviously, is the first part. The second part is an acceptance, and a legal acceptance of it. And then the third part is something called consideration. That's a legal term. It means that you've exchanged some sort of value to enter the contract. So the easiest way would, hey, I'm going to pay somebody to come, fix the wiring in my house. That's a service. I'm paying money for that. So that's an exchange of value. So you need to have some sort of consideration in the deal. And otherwise the court will say, it's a gift, might not be legally binding then if the court didn't find that it was actually a contract that required an exchange of value. So those are the three things. Okay, so what's an offer? An offer is just a written or spoken statement to do something. So again, not the most helpful, a written or spoken statement to do something. So so you can make an offer relatively easily. I want to say though, really general offers don't really count that much. I mean, for a court to really find, hey, that was an actual offer that was made, you need to be specific about the terms. I mean, and you should do that for lots of other reasons. The specificity of the terms is pretty much the most important part of contracting, in my opinion. So that's what an offer is. It's a written statement or a verbal statement to do something, and it should contain some definite terms. So the next part is an acceptance. So what do courts look at when they look to see whether or not an acceptance happened? So basically, agreeing to it without adding additional terms. If you add additional terms or take away some of the terms that were offered to you or change the price, that's a counteroffer. So that's not an acceptance. That is not a time to start doing work or to think that, you have a deal. You do not. So if you don't accept the offer based on the exact terms that were offered to you, then you're making a counter offer. And then the last thing about a contract is consideration. And we went over that again. We went over that earlier, and that's just that you've paid some value for the exchange. So I want to talk to you a little bit about verbal agreements, because you can have a verbal contract. Before we go further, I want to talk to you a little bit about verbal agreements. First, I'm going to tell you, just don't do a verbal agreement. Under the law, you absolutely can do a verbal agreement. I just would never suggest that you do such a thing. But there are three contracts that cannot be verbal agreements. And those are the sale of property, real estate, the sale of goods costing more than $500, and then a transaction that's going to take over a year to complete. Those kinds of contracts need to be in writing. So I've actually had somebody come to me that had a verbal agreement, and the contract was not something that could have been completed in 1 year. And ultimately, she really had a problem. We had a problem with enforcing that contract. She relied heavily on it, but it was something that the nature of that contract needed to be in writing, and it just wasn't. And it was a big problem for her. So I'll just let you know, if you're going to do a service that's going to take longer than a year to complete, put that contract in writing. Otherwise, you'll be back against the wall with a problem in front of the court. I wanted to talk to you quickly too about whether or not emails can count as contracts. And the answer to that should be fairly obvious. Most contracts now are e-sign, and so emails do work as contracts. The court looks at the same requirements as any other contract. And then again, text messages, another issue. People are contracting through text messaging all the time. So again, just because it's in a more informal medium, it doesn't mean that it won't bind you to a legally binding enforceable contract. So just something to be aware of. And lastly, I just want to let you know that contracts are my jam, and I love writing contracts. And I would suggest, if you are a services provider, handyman, anybody that does a service for a living, you need to have a specifically tailored contract. So, I mean, I would just invite you to please come see me and help you take care of that. It would help you feel more confident as you transact business with your clients. And additionally, you'll sleep better knowing that your contract does protect you and is clearly written and makes sense. It's there to protect both parties. So, never hesitate when it comes to your contracts. So, again, my name is Melissa Wick, and I own Wick Law offices here in Columbus, Ohio. Thanks.